I got a little rest, and then I have served for a while. I had some spaghetti. It turns out the resupply was outside my room here all day yesterday until someone was kind enough to point it out. It's similar to how, this Lenovo ThinkPad was left like trash in the hallway for 2 days in Aniana before it was delivered. People are very symbolic, and they're very explicit about what matters to them. And, I don't think that much good is going to come from any number of efforts. But it's become apparent to me that what can be done for a photo ID and what can be done with a photo ID has been reduced, for me, to something very much like immigration mobs who can't get credentials. Obstacles, circumstantial and otherwise, are put in their way, and so they don't have documentation. It's as though I landed on the beaches of Panama City, only to find that I can't be identified or something. Things have changed since I relocated, or since I was sent here to Alex City. I have obviously stumbled upon the fact that now there are more rigorous requirements in terms of doing anything online. I'm okay with that, although, I've told people I think it begs the question about security if what people are deciding is that there's no place in a civilized society for positive identification. Or anything less than positive identification. Namely, it's a type of privacy to have a nom de plume, and that has to be sacrificed on the altar of security. I think that people are hiding behind what's supposed to be good intentions. So see to it that there is no nom de plume anymore in so many ways. But that's a separate issue, and I think people are going to thrash through all of that. Meanwhile, people no longer publish anything but their hashtag address, and stuff. So that's fine. Big deal. But what I'm talking about is the nitty-gritty, the last time I voted, I did not need a photo ID. Now I would need a photo ID. And the irony is, really some of the most provincial and hateful people in the world said, hell no, we don't want photo IDs, and they had counterparts who felt like, well, we are entitled to photo IDs, both for our own use and that others should have to use them also. But cutting to the chase somewhat, all of that, people can demonstrate their level of prolixity on all of that. And some of them do no better than that and have become millionaires as a result. Or if not millionaires, then, have taken vows of poverty on a pile of malarkey, as if they needed money or don't need money or whatever. They want power, I guess, instead of money. The two are, it's possible to separate one from the other, but very often they really are combined. But anyway, so here I am, just the nitty-gritty. A thief, I know her name, stole every bit of my ID stuff. Who else would want to do that than the person I know of, a piece of shit in Aniana, who this day still thrives on top of a pile of malarkey. Not all of her own doing, but certainly she partakes in a pile of malarkey, ideologically and so on. Anyway, it turns out that, fast forward to now, I have been, I've been relocated to Alex City, and sure enough, I can only log on to a number of sites as a guest because I can't offer a photo ID. The requirement now is that you have a telephone number and a smartphone and a photo ID to enroll in several sites that are offered. Meanwhile, I was enrolled in everything for X.com, and it is a badge of honor. Let me just say, some people have snipped parts of what is going on that platform and others, and they still are allowed to post, and yet I was removed. I know why. It's because I know chapter and verse about efforts that have failed to stop the juggernaut in terms of peculiar EV developments that are inappropriate. That's why. But other than that, I wasn't saying much of anything except exactly what they would prefer to prevent and preclude on that platform. At the same time, since then, they've been talking about, what we've got is a really a grease pot, and for your own good, we're not letting you in there in that fray. In other words, a paternalism that they would try to hold on to as if somehow to obfuscate on the matter of censorship. I haven't been censored by anyone but that particular group in a long time. I have been brutalized by people because of what I believe or what I say, whatever. But that's the only little penny ante outfit that has said we have had to summarily end your activity, but you have a right of appeal. Appeal on the basis of what? They don't even say what or why. But let me tell you, I'm for free enterprise, and if a penny ante website wants to groom its players, and sort of like if you have a casino, there's certain people who are banned from playing. Well, of course, that's imperfect because, some people know how to game the system. Well, what if you're just very good at it? They'll ban a person off the floor of a casino. Well, it's sort of that way with this little outfit, Anyway, I used to have 2 dozen of these cups. I haven't tried to find the other one. I think I had only 2 left when I left Aniana. I may have only one of these now. Anyway, I got this out simply because I can have 4 pulls in 1 cup rather than, do it twice or something, whatever. As much as I like those espresso mugs that I've advocated for people. Espresso helps me a lot, not much else. Anyway, so here I am. I'm in guest mode in a lot of places, and what little I can do, I still do, and what I can't do, I can't do, and it's down to the point where it's obvious that that the people here in Andalusia are not going to cooperate. Now, principally, that's your favorite named Cleveland. He no longer even communicates. He will not even communicate. I have no phone because I have no ID to activate any telephone account. Even what replaced the Obama phone thing that I had now also requires an ID. So I have no phone. I have email, and I can post things to YouTube and Facebook, and that's it. And he's happy with that, obviously, and now feels that, you know, he's gently let it dawn on me that that's all he's prepared to provide for. He keeps the lights on so the camera works, and that's all. I have no ID, therefore I have no telephone service. Now I've looked into it. There is a service that would allow me to have a telephone working on Wi-Fi, but it's not worth the effort. So I'm not going to do that unless there's no other option. So I have no way to authenticate anything, and more people require a photo ID. So, you know, it's literally a kind of enslavement, just in those terms. Now, the true enslavement, the horrific parameters of my enslavement are far more than that I can't have a photo ID. I mean, you know, and people know the terms of that, and lo and behold, people are okay with that. People are okay with that. But I thought, well, let's see, I could write to Kansas and get my birth certificate. It'd be just under $50. That can be done online, and with the Chime account I can use the Visa and pay for it, something that took a lot of effort, and finally I got that done. But I can write to Kansas and get a birth certificate, you know, a certified copy of the birth certificate, $40 some odd. Then theoretically I could call Uber or one of these car companies and get a ride to the courthouse and pay, I'm told, it'd be another nearly $40 some odd for a photo ID. I think that's unconstitutional, by the way, because now you can't vote without a photo ID, and if you have to pay your way to get a photo ID, then that amounts to a de facto poll tax. And as far as I'm concerned, the courts of America are wrong if they don't interpret fees for photo ID as a kind of de facto poll tax. Even though, of course, in my case, it's not that I plan to vote, but that same photo ID would enable things as practical as voting in today's performative elections. Anyway, so it would cost me almost $50 paid to Kansas, almost $50 paid to the court annex here, plus the cost of Gruber or Grover or what, modern day taxi kind of thing, to get that to. How long would the line be, and the meter would still be running on the car, or what could I do? Let the car go and call him up on a phone? Well, no, I don't have a phone to call him up. I can't call him up on a phone. I would have to have him stay there and wait for me to finish, you know, and get my photo ID and so on. Anyway, it would be somewhere between $50 and $100 to get my goddamn photo ID in this land of the free and the home of the brave. I think there's still people carrying on. You know, I don't know, what was your favorite? Now, I guess, what's his name, Kirk, is not of a church that, you know, names people as saints. But the martyrdom of someone who advocated free speech, I think he abused it some. That's not unusual. But he did stand for the principle of free speech. I like that. But, you know, the reification of a martyr killed for no good reason is really, really an indication of how bad things have gotten. I've watched people grow enormously in their trade. There's one whose prolixity reminds me when he's on the air, not every time, but sometimes on the air, he reminds me of a flying insect, you know, in a bottle, you know, kind of buzzing in his bottle online. I hope he can take a deep breath or something and do better with that, but in the meantime, he's been reading and thinking and doing a lot of things, and I think I agree with him more than I disagree, unlike someone I saw on trigonometry who pivoted and pivoted and pivoted, always excusing his failure as mysteriously laying a trap for people who take his bait or something. A very peculiar performance. It reminds me of Carol Connor and some other people. But his argument, he says that he knows his argument is simplistic and primitive, but he is dedicated to interesting people in what he has to say. One non sequitur after another, a kind of prolixity that I would hope can gently be put to rest. You know, Alex can do that, or the team, trigonometry. But if people have their heads turned by, you know, the dollars or the head count or something, then, you know, they tend to make rationalizations, you know. I do too, but my rationalizations for doing something or not, or pursuing something or not, generally lately have been based on my lack of resources, and that includes stamina. You know, I don't sleep like a normal person because of the damage done chemically over the years. A prescription pad is a lethal weapon in the hands of some folks. If not lethal, then very near lethal in some cases. But my point is, I'm roughly $100 away from something as modest, really, as the replacement of what was stolen from me. I say that because one of the things taken from me was my old driver's license. And I found out that had I been able just to present the driver's license at any, you know, courthouse thing, they would instantly take a new picture of me for either a driver's license or an ID card. Failing that, it's all the way back to Kansas City and so on. I'm telling you, I'm in the hands of very bad people. Very, very bad people. And they get away with what they're doing because they're not alone. Well, of course, everybody knows that. And then people like to tell me that I'm not alone. Well, I think there should be some better solution than limbo for any reason. And I would say get it over with. But I know that people don't want to do that. Right now, I think I'm in a sadistic version of what would Charles Kirk do or something. You know what I mean? I'm saying I don't care. I'd like to know why not, in terms of any number of people who are responsible by law, or who by law could take responsibility if they chose. But nobody has, and well, I did finally get the little Lenovo cleaned up internally. A nice fresh Windows 11 plus updates, and found one of the several webcams to use with it. You know, see, this one is not the one built into the top edge of the Lenovo with the microphone there. And so I could part around at things, but you know, there, is that better? Well, I don't know. Anyway, then I found out that I could plug in the old monitor that you see. Here's the Lenovo, and then over here is the old monitor that was used with the new mini computer that I bought. And of course, all the damage done and theft and everything also means, among other things, that you know, my master file of email addresses has been scattered. I don't know whether I would find many of them or not, but some of them are in the bottom drawer nearby, but I don't think all of them are there, and I just haven't bothered. I've noticed that whereas many of them were obtained from the internet, you know, under the about section of a given Facebook or YouTube, or even X, although that's now just totaled out. Most of those email addresses have not been taken down. People have discreetly removed their email addresses, and so I say, well, there's little interest in my worrying about that, because I haven't used them to good effect. You know, I haven't been able to use them to good effect, and well, that's just the way it is, you know. I don't like this hashtag business or @ business for shunting stuff from YouTube, for example, and I don't want to bother with Facebook as a way to contact people directly. I had what I wanted, and people said no more of that. Okay, well then, no more of that. In the background here you see this is the newer monitor that I had in use until it was sabotaged in terms of connectivity. It's actually as big as the one you see in the middle between the three. The one next to the Lenovo is essentially almost the same size as the one in the background, but you know, the lens here makes things look that way. Somehow, although many valuable things have been stolen or thrown out, the goddamn cuckoo clock is still to be seen there. You know, so you know, your geniuses are in a de facto mode about this place, and they've chosen to do nothing. And so, because of the $100, something less, maybe what, 80? $80, $70, $65, $63, I don't know. What would it cost to actually get a goddamn photo ID? To fit into your goddamn system, which involves everything from the cross to any number of things over the many, many years. And why? So that you can tell me, oh, well, Dave, we just care more than we can say. Yeah, I think that's true. You can't say. You'd have a hard time faking it, wouldn't you? As I sit here in this squalor with a thug in charge of everything. Sometimes people tiptoe into the room electronically to say, well, Dave, we're working on it, or this, that, and the other. And really, it's just a rotten experience. But I woke up, it's now, 11 minutes past 5 a.m. on, what is it, Tuesday, September the 16th, 2025. I have tried to be in touch with your thug. Remember, the only way is email. I do not have a phone. I will not have a phone as a phone, as a cell phone, until or unless I have a photo ID to unlock a goddamn SIM kit for it to work. And your thug has no excuse now. He makes no more excuses. Sort of like, when they stole every stitch of clothing. And that was the reality. I sat in a diaper and a paper shirt, no more, no less, for a long time. How do you explain that? You don't have to, isn't that right? But as you know, unless the content is a little bit better than PragerU, somehow explaining itself in terms of its founder, namesake, whatever, I consider that a really bad hustle. And but somehow people say, oh, well, no worse than Netanyahu. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe not. But I'm in touch beyond the Jewish state, or for that matter, the diaspora, whatever you want to say. There are a lot of people who are not Jews or Christians. And many of them, I know, are appalled at the mayhem and so on. And then there are extremists who have been everything from KKK to, what is it now? I don't know the various excuses that people have. Yes, beliefs over, when somebody like Prager says something that is true, I would say, well, it's like talking about an old clock face. See here, this one works, so that the mic of the Mickey Mouse one doesn't work, but that one does work, and I can refer to it, that clock, if it had no battery in it, would be what? Accurate twice a day? It's an old proverb or what about that? And so it goes with Prager. He could say something and be right, but then be wrong in the next statement. Same thing with just about anybody. People are not infallible. But I get pretty well annoyed, when I think about people hustling the way PragerU does, governments even, and so on. he would act like Big Brother, and apparently people are going along with that. And I have the feeling that there are those in the growing reification of Charles Kirk. Yeah, I can have 4 pulls in this one cup, so that's efficient for me. The reification of Charles Kirk might end up with something as large as the Billy Graham organization, and you know that I have railed against the attempt to leverage hatred into a kind of respectable righteousness, and it just doesn't work out very well, and I think there are those, for example, in one huge group who refer to, homilies are just that. People mumbling about almost nothing in Latin or any language. That's sort of a shame, isn't it? But I don't think that's true now. I think that they're trying to bestir themselves and do better. And I'm also in touch with a young man that reminds me of the one Timcast. I forget what he calls this thing, but it's about he tells about how as a devout person growing up, the horizon on all sides was empty, leaving him to cling devoutly to his faith, and that it took him a long time to overcome all that. And he says he's still working on it, but I have the feeling he's doing much better now. Although there are other problems he has, and that are hard to explain culturally. I've asked people about that, and they don't tell me. But anyway, I'm here with my horizon is not blank, the way I just talked about. There are things on the horizon, but I never get any closer to any of them, really. Except that at 79, things have changed from when I was 29, so I'm not at peace because the pain is too great, but in a sense I'm at peace. I manage the pain I suffer as best I might, and I try to turn to something worthwhile sometimes, but I'll be damned if I just hope that people do not end up doing kind of a PragerU kind of thing, or what, the Billy Graham stuff, or any of those, the mega church thing that many people know about. I hope that none of that happens with Charlie Kirk. One of the things that could happen is that his message about people having free speech can be terribly compromised if a big organization gathers around him and starts, playing whack-a-mole with free speech, bam, 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 knocking down opposition with what money can buy. Something crops up, then buy what puts it down. That's the trouble, and I remember listening to some of the fractured debates that Charlie had on college campuses. They really weren't, neither he nor the challenger would say things that are worth paying attention to. And now I notice that X.com has adopted the idea that, well, you see, what we do is so violent and so pungent and so on, that we are just closing the door so you won't have mud splashed on you or something. How patronizing, That is said to me, in effect, now, rather often, as if they know what's best, right? And of course, it's a very flawed attempt at justification of something that is fundamentally very bad. As bad as selling terrible products originating from outside the U.S. Well, there are many products made and sold in the U.S. that are terrible. So I don't, you're right, I don't work that way, and a lot of people don't anymore, you know. So I'm looking around, you know, CQ, CQ, CQ. Or is there anyone out there? Or is there anyone in there? Or is there anyone anywhere? Or what? I don't have rigorous standards. I try to look into just about anything to a point, but then sometimes it just becomes, you know, the accumulation of evidence to a breaking point. You know, I say, well, I've seen or heard enough, you know, and I might revisit later. Which, for example, put me in touch with some new people not too long ago who were ideologically or forensically or academically newbies 20 years ago, and who now are full-blown, well-seasoned, and maybe thinking about becoming more outspoken. But, you know, there's a duplicity about people talking about free speech, you know, and it's somewhat mysterious, but not so mysterious as the intricacies and the subtleties and the economic factors having to do with orbital mechanics. Now, you know, some have worried that Newton no longer defines how we compute certain things. That's true. Nor does any other single idea nowadays. And so when people ridicule what I've said about orbital mechanics, that's okay. If the people who know about it can use the realities that they understand, then the world will be a safer place. But as I've learned to say, it is too late for me to try to defend or explain anything I say, because there are too many people whose main idea is to vote me off any particular island where I might stand. And as you know, that famous thing about, you know, give me a place to stand and I can move anything, you know, and all that. Well, not without a fulcrum. In terms of a multiplier effect. Well, a lever, depending on how long it is, involves something similar, and so on. So I don't know. I don't think there's much that I can do about intransigence. Some might say that I'm intransigent. I would say if that's true, then check for obliviousness. It might be that I'm more oblivious than intransigent, but maybe that's something nobody would do. And then, of course, if you did find that I'm oblivious, then what? That would mean that you would whip out a piece of paper and write on it as a result. Well, that's one hell of a mess in terms of delegation or anything else. Well, I say it's coming down to 5:30. So at this hour, and I've had my espresso. I still advocate that, although I haven't noticed much enthusiasm for it. But I still advocate espresso. Some, you know, will tell you don't ever, for some reason, if not always, for some reason. All right, it says here 39.1 1/2, you might say, and that's enough. Good morning.